Hey everyone, I'm Jules, and I did my pop culture artifact project on the TV show Bob's Burgers. So today I'll be covering question 3 by discussing what Bob's Burgers tells us about identity, and more specifically, what it tells us about class. Bob's Burgers is an adult animated show that has been running since 2011. The show centers on the middle-class Belcher family, which is comprised of the parents, Bob and Linda Belcher, and their 3 children, Tina, Jean, and Louise. The Belcher family owns and operates the restaurant Bob's Burgers, and even the children help in the restaurant after school. The show takes place in Seymour's Bay, New Jersey. The show's inception occurs only a few years after the Great Recession of 2008. This recession significantly impacted everyone, but especially middle-class families. Even after the official end of the Great Recession, wage growth for the middle class was incredibly weak, which only furthered the wealth disparity between the middle and upper class. Tenants' rights movements subsequently gained significantly more popularity after this recession. And in January 2009, Barack Obama was inaugurated as President of the United States. The first discussion around class in Bob's Burgers is on the struggle to make ends meet. Throughout the show, there are frequent references to things like being late on rent, poverty, and even Bob having to take on second jobs to make ends meet. In the upper right, you'll see him pictured in an episode where he takes on a job as a taxi driver in the evenings to increase the family's income. There's also instances like Linda saying 1 month's rent, that's more than we make in a month, which shows how little money they are regularly bringing in. Perceptions of wealth and being financially stable can also differ depending on someone's class. Despite the Belcher family often barely scraping by, the children are not always fully aware of their family's financial position. This is highlighted by Jean saying, "You say that like we're not rich. Wait, are we not rich?" And in an instance where Louise tells him that their toys are not at risk of being stolen, and he responds with, "Why not? Is it because we're poor and our toys break almost immediately?" The Belcher family is in an extremely precarious financial situation and want to do something to become more financially stable. In one episode, Bob is desperate to draw more attention and more business to the restaurant, so he used his entire budget on funding and creating a Super Bowl ad. They highlight what differentiates them from other restaurants, which included having better flavor and being family run. The financial struggle of the Bob's Burgers restaurant is very common for small restaurant owners. Restaurants are a high-risk business venture as approximately 30% of them fail within the first year of opening. One significant contributing factor to this extremely high failure rate is the amount of competition that there is for restaurants. This is shown in Bob's Burgers, as Jimmy Pesto and Bob Belcher are in constant competition with each other to draw customers into their own restaurant over the other's restaurant. When there's so many options, it can be challenging to stand out. Since the entire family works in the Bob's Burgers restaurant, there's a lot of pressure to stay in business and keep generating enough income to keep them afloat. Second common theme of class in Bob's Burgers is class tensions and classism. One area of this is in the tensions between the characters of different classes. On multiple occasions, wealthy landlord Mr. Fischoeder offers to pay the Belchers a certain amount of months worth of rent in exchange for something he wants them to do. Tenants' rights movements have criticized the commodification of housing and profiting off of tenants. This, along with the many people opposing efforts to make housing more affordable, have resulted in tensions between tenants and the landowners. We see this sort of capitalistic mindset in Mr. Fischoeder, in his willingness to take any opportunity to do things that will benefit him even if they're at the cost of others. You can also see this drastically different sort of attitude towards money between the lower and upper class characters in Bob's Burgers. For example, the Belchers continuously work extremely hard to stay in business. In contrast, the Fischoeder brothers are extremely wealthy and are not very concerned about money. This can be seen in exaggerated scenes such as their money fights, where they are literally just throwing money at each other. This symbolizes how frivolous money is to them, and when you are that well off, money often loses much of its value. Class also shapes our friendships. One of the key features of a long-lasting, healthy friendship is a feeling of equality within the friendship. Because of this, people tend to be friends with people in a similar class as them. This idea is replicated in the Bob's Burgers community. The closest friendships are all between characters of similar class. For example, on the bottom right, we have Bob and Teddy pictured. Teddy is a working class carpenter and handyman. And on the bottom left, we have Linda and Gretchen pictured. Gretchen is a hairdresser. We also see classism in the jokes made towards the Belchers. In the episode Bob Day Afternoon, a banker tells Bob that his credit score is so low that it has become the bank's inside joke among the employees. In another episode, Bob tells Jimmy Pesto he will pay for damages that were done, to which Jimmy Pesto replies, "I don't have time to work out an 8 cents a month payment plan for you." And finally, Mr. Fischoeder continuously refers to the Belchers as the burger people, which feels both demeaning and classist. The final discussion of class in Bob's Burgers is how it makes viewers question if the myth of meritocracy is real and if it really applies to everyone. This meritocracy or idealized sort of rags to riches type of story is often told in media and has become a key part of the American dream. There's this idea that anyone who works really hard will become successful despite any roadblocks or obstacles they may face. Bob's Burgers makes us question if this and consider if this myth is really an illusion or if it actually is true for people. There are many other factors that influence success as America is built on a very discriminatory foundation. The Belcher family highlights a clear example of the idea of meritocracy in America being false, at least not for everyone. The Belchers and Bob specifically work extremely hard, are very good at cooking, and always use high quality ingredients, yet the restaurant continues to struggle. Bob works himself to exhaustion at the restaurant every day of the week, and his overworking tendencies are so extreme that in an episode his family forces him to take a day off, yet he ends up helping out another restaurant rather than simply resting. In contrast, his rival restaurant owner Jimmy Pesto puts significantly less work and care into his restaurant than Bob. He's perfectly content with sacrificing the quality of his ingredients, yet his restaurant is extremely successful. This forces viewers to confront the fact that perhaps the myth that they have been sold does not actually manifest in this way in reality. And that leaves us with a question for further consideration. How do you see class impact characters in your favorite TV shows or movies? Is class part of the main storyline, or is it more of a background influence on characters' attitudes and behaviors? Here were all of my references. Thank you.